How's it going, guys? I'm back again for another video about Christianity or religion in general. Anyways, um, yeah, we're going to talk about things people say sometimes. Like when you're talking to someone, and let's say I'm the atheist and they're the Christian, which is often the case, and they say, I feel Jesus in my heart. And I say that, um, that they point to the other 1 to 2 billion people on this planet who also agree with them, and they say, there's like almost 2 billion Christians. Probably, I think there's more than 2 billion now, but they say that when you look at these billions of people who hold this view, how could they be wrong? And then you speak to Muslims, they might say the same thing. They say, there's 1.5 billion of us, and we all hold this view, and it's the same view. So how is it that it could be wrong? I mean, they're not saying that they must be right, but they're saying, this is a very strong argument. There's 1 billion people who agree with you, and you are trying to disagree with all of us, and it sort of diminishes the reason behind whatever you're saying. Or they'll say, um, I don't care what other people believe about religion or about Jesus or about Muhammad. I only trust what I believe, because that's really all they have, and all they have is the beliefs and the feelings that they receive from their beliefs. Or even if you're just speaking to someone and they say, you know, I must be right. When they look out the world and they see all these religions, they see Judaism, they see Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, or whatever that's called. There's so many different religions, and they say, I simply know that I'm right, despite billions of people who feel contrary to that. They think that they're right, and so you basically have billions of people who are expressing this same feeling that is mutually exclusive to each one of them. So it's an interesting situation, but to these kinds of things, in response to this kind of mentality, I've been thinking, and I was thinking about when I was a kid, and when I was a kid, I don't know. I think this is fairly normal among kids, is that they attribute human emotions to things, or they empathize with things which are not humans or animals, which are objects. And so I think that there's a lot of personification in the way that children understand the world, or at least the way that we arrange the way that they perceive the world. Because a child might ask, who created the universe, as opposed to what or why is the universe created, or is it created? Did it always has it always been here, and things like that. And um, this is a phenomenon that children, presumably all across the world, experience this feeling of um, having, like, sharing these sort of one-sided relationships with things. And so, like, when I was little, I would develop empathetic relationships towards stuffed animals, for example, which I knew were not real, but I acted as if they were at times, and I felt for them as if they were not inanimate objects, and as if they were humans, or their respective animal, depending on what they were. And I think this is something that stays with us, and I don't think it's only a phenomenon of children. I think that even in adulthood, you see this same kind of behavior played out in maybe a different context, but I think the actual result is the same, in that um, you'll see people who really genuinely care about their cars, or about their homes, or about their other possessions of different kinds. And I'm not talking about, like, yeah, I really value my car. It helps me get places. It helps me, maintain my job and move my kids around. No, these are people that, for lack of a better word, worship their car, and they love it. And when it gets hurt, they're concerned for it. And so um, you might see people doing this with clothes as well, or other such objects. And I think this is representative of the way that humans deal with one-sided relationships, and I think that they're fairly prominent at any age. As you look across the demographics of Earth, you'll see that people of all ages feel this one-sided empathy for all objects in all different ways to all different extents, and so I think that religion and the way that people regard God, um, I think that's an offshoot of that tendency to hold this one-sided relationship with objects. Except in the case of a God, you have this object which is immaterial, and so it's not as easy to identify as someone who loves their car or their clothes or some sentimental object, for example. And so what it allows you to do is create this sort of concept object, which any number of people on the planet can then relate to and say that I'm holding this one-sided relationship with this object, and it allows people by the billions to engage in the same sort of activity that only someone, maybe two people might have the same feeling for a car or their clothes or their house or another such object. And so um, I think that it's not it's not so much that when people say, how could 1 billion people be wrong? How could 2 billion people be mistaken about this thing that they feel empathetically for, and they feel these emotions. Um, I don't think that's representative of an actual thing. I think that's representative of the marvels of the human brain for empathizing and for mirroring its own emotions to something that is emotionless, as just as children do. For I remember when I was a kid, I used to empathize with sticks. Like if I had been hanging out with a stick all day and like messing around with it like a sword and everything, and then it broke at the end of the day, I'd be like, wow, that sucks. Like I don't want that to happen. And I felt bad for it because now it was broken. And as a kid, you're not held back by these like sort of rationalizations, like this is a stick, I don't need to feel empathy for it, it's doesn't care that it's broken, it just was hanging out, it's a dead thing. But I think that this is the kind of mentality adults tap into as they're older and as they're free to choose what they want to rationally and irrationally accept. I think this is the same strain of thought. And so yeah, I think that when people feel Jesus in their heart, for example, I think that this is what's happening. I feel that they are mirroring their emotions across this space, and what they're getting back is what they put in. And so, and it makes sense because you don't usually have people who are not religious receiving these transcendental religious messages or religious emotions or empathy or feelings, because they're not trying to mirror themselves to another thing and then receive their own emotions back. They're not engaging in that practice, and so it rarely will happen. But I mean, it will occasionally happen. But the point is that I think this is one way to describe that phenomenon, that so many people can believe that can hold this one-sided relationship with the same thing. And so um, I think it has an impact on this kind of mentality where I must be right because I feel this relationship with Jesus, or I feel this relationship with Muhammad, or with any other prophet or any other God. I think it's just human psychology working out, and it's kind of interesting to see that the pinnacle of this kind of psychology is a one-sided relationship with an object which is immaterial and also a god. But I don't think it says anything that a billion people believe the same thing, or that people feel this relationship because we're all fallible and we all I mean, if this is an actual way to describe the psychology of humans and actually what's happening with these people, then we are very vulnerable to our psychology in ways that we don't yet understand or are not fully aware of, because we're being fooled, essentially, if I'm correct. So that was just a thought I had, because I thought it was interesting to look at human belief that way. So comment about it. I hope you like it. Thanks.